Okay. So you're with us for the deep dive. And today, we're really zeroing in on I think, a pretty important challenge for a lot of people listening.
Yeah.
Making the most of your presence at Win Europe Madrid 2026.
Huge event.
Huge. And, I mean, if you're listening to this, there's a good chance that you are earmarking,
right,
serious time and resources
for sure
for this event. So you definitely, I think, deserve to see a real impact.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're going to sort of try to dissect today.
So we've actually been looking at some insider intel, shall we say, from a company called Expo Stand Builder.
Right.
Booth Design Spain.
Yeah. So they're experts in this field, so we're going to be drawing on their knowledge.
Yeah. And I think our mission today really is to give you that sort of strategic toolkit
that
you can use to really design and build an exhibition stand that doesn't just, it doesn't just look pretty.
Right.
It actually works to generate, high quality leads.
Right.
And establish your brand as a leader in the field at Win Europe Madrid 2026.
A leader. An authority.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into it.
Let's start with the foundation, shall we? The pre-show planning.
Okay.
And a lot of people underestimate this stage, but I think, it's really where success begins.
So much to do before you even get there.
Absolutely. And the very first thing I think is really, getting clarity on those goals.
Okay. So when we talk about goals,
yeah,
I mean, we've all heard boost brand awareness.
Yeah. Increase visibility.
Increase visibility. These very sort of broad stroke aims.
Yeah. And the material we've looked at actually pushes back against that a little bit.
It does. And rightfully so.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like saying, I want to, improve in general. Mm-hmm. Well, great. But how will you know?
Yeah. How do you measure that?
You've succeeded at Win Europe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those vague aspirations, they don't really give you a framework for action, do they?
No.
So Expo Stand Builder, they really stress the need for specificity.
Right.
So measurable targets.
Give us some examples.
So instead of, boost brand awareness, you could say, okay, our objective is to secure 100 qualified leads during the event.
I like that.
Or we aim to book 20 in-depth meetings with key players in the industry. Mm-hmm. Or even, we're launching this new product line. We want to achieve 5 pre-orders.
5 pre-orders. You've got a number.
Exactly.
It's not just this nebulous sense of, I hope people like it.
Yeah. And I think when you shift to those concrete numbers, it really changes everything.
It does.
Because immediately it starts to inform your stand design.
Of course.
So if those partner meetings are crucial, then you need a dedicated space on your stand.
Meeting space here.
If showcasing that new product is the path to pre-orders, well, then you need a prominent area for live demos.
Yeah.
So it all becomes much more intentional.
And focused.
Exactly. And I think you can think of those goals not just as targets, but as filters for every design and activation decision. So you ask yourself, does this help me achieve that specific metric?
Right.
If it doesn't, it's a distraction.
It's clutter. Yeah.
Exactly. And once you've got that clarity of purpose, then comes the very important question of budget.
Right.
And the advice here is not simply to go for the cheapest option.
No, it's about being smart.
Yeah. Budget smart, not just cheap.
Yeah.
It's tempting, I think, to cut corners, right?
Of course.
But the source material really advocates for a more strategic approach.
It does. It does. And what I thought was interesting was this emphasis on
investing wisely.
Investing wisely, right? In key areas.
Yeah. So, impactful design that's going to grab attention.
Okay.
Engaging technology to draw people in.
Yeah.
And then a really knowledgeable, well-trained team.
They're your front line.
They are. And skimping on any of those can actually undermine your return in the long run.
It can.
It's like investing in this high-performance engine, but then putting cheap tires on the car.
You're not going to get the performance.
You're not going to get the full potential.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
And the article also reminds us about the often overlooked costs of logistics.
Yeah.
For an event like Win Europe in Madrid.
That can be huge.
It can.
Getting your stand components and all your materials there.
Yeah.
Navigating customs.
Yeah.
Handling everything on site at IFEMA.
Exactly.
Those costs can really add up.
They do. So you need to factor them in from the start.
Right, from the outset.
From the get-go.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got your goals, you've got your budget.
Yeah.
Now you've got to decide.
What kind of stand?
Yeah, what's the type of stand?
Is going to best align with your strategy.
Is it custom?
Modular?
Modular or rental?
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit.
Right, well, custom stands.
As the name suggests.
Yeah, pretty self-explanatory.
Offer that kind of ultimate in-brand expression.
Yeah, you can have completely bespoke designs tailored to your objectives.
So if you've got a very specific message, a very specific way you want to come across.
Yeah, and the resources to do it.
This is the way to go. Yeah. But the key here is that it requires a longer lead time.
More time.
Yeah, so you need to start that design process early.
Way in advance.
Yeah, if you're thinking custom build, think ahead.
Yeah, and then we've got the modular stands.
Yeah, and these are interesting because they strike a balance, I think, between flexibility and cost effectiveness.
Right.
And that's particularly important if, Wind Europe isn't your only show.
Right. You're doing multiple events.
Yeah, you're going to several trade shows throughout the year.
Makes sense.
The important thing here, though, is to choose a modular system that still allows for creative design.
Right. You don't want to look like everybody else.
You don't want that cookie cutter look.
No.
So make sure there's still room for visual flair.
Some personality in there.
Absolutely.
And then I guess the rental stands are...
Yeah, these are your more budget-friendly and convenient option, really.
Especially if it's a one-off.
Yeah, one-off appearance.
You're not going to be reusing this stand.
Exactly. But even with rentals, you can explore customization options. Okay.
So you can upgrade graphics, maybe get some more distinctive furniture.
Right.
Think about impactful lighting. You can still make a rental stand feel like your own.
Right. Right. So it's not just that.
Yeah,
generic kind of off the shelf.
Exactly. Okay, so before you lock in any of those decisions, I think there's a really valuable stage which might feel a bit like market research.
Okay.
But it's all about observing your competitors.
Subtly observing.
Subtly is the key word here.
Right.
The aim isn't to copy what others are doing.
No.
It's to identify gaps and opportunities for differentiation.
To see where you can stand out.
Exactly.
And what I found really interesting here was the sort of forward-looking aspect of this.
Yeah.
It's not just about looking at what competitors have done in the past. It's trying to anticipate what they are likely to do.
At Wind Europe 2026.
At Wind Europe 2026. Yeah. So how can you be bolder, more innovative, or offer a more engaging experience?
How can you make your stand the one that people are talking about? The one that people gravitate towards?
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got a solid pre-show plan in place.
Clear objectives.
The budget's looking good.
The right stand.
And we've got a sense of the competition.
We're ready to move on to...
Part 2.
Stand design.
Stand design that demands attention.
This is where the visual impact really takes shape.
Okay, so the first principle here is a simple one.
Less is more.
It's about resisting that urge to cram everything into your space.
Yeah, you don't want to overwhelm people.
No, it just ends up looking cluttered.
It does, and it can dilute your message.
Yeah.
So the advice we found was to focus on your most important messages.
Okay.
Your flagship products or services.
Flagship products.
That's it. And of course, consistent, clear branding.
Yeah, and the point about white space, I think, is so important.
It is. It's all about creating visual breathing room.
Yeah, it makes it feel sophisticated.
Yeah, and it allows your key elements to stand out.
Stand out, right?
Because often a clean, uncluttered stand...
It conveys quality.
Yeah, it feels more premium. Yeah.
And it actually invites people in.
It does. It does. So we've got this less is more approach.
Yeah, and then building on that is the concept of designing for flow and engagement.
Okay.
Not just for aesthetics.
Not just how it looks.
Exactly, because it's not enough for your stand to just look impressive from across the hall.
Right.
It needs to be intuitive.
Easy to navigate.
And it needs to encourage interaction.
Yeah, think about making it easy for people to enter. Yeah. To navigate to different areas.
Find the information they need.
Is it clear where the product demonstrations are? Where are the private meetings? Yeah. Where do I just go to get information? Mm-hmm. The easier it is to engage, the more likely they are to engage.
Absolutely. And then there's one area that can have a huge impact, and that's lighting.
Oh, yeah. Lighting is so crucial.
The source actually called it your secret weapon.
And I love that because it's so true.
Yeah.
If you just rely on that sort of generic overhead lighting.
Yeah, the standard exhibition hall lighting.
It can look really flat. It can. You need to invest in your own strategic lighting.
Spotlights to highlight products.
Uplights to create ambiance.
Backlighting for signage.
Yeah. All of that can really elevate the look and feel.
It can. It's like the difference between a stage that's just lit.
Yeah.
And one where the lighting is designed to create drama and focus.
Exactly. Yeah. Well-placed lighting can draw the eye.
Yeah.
And create a specific mood.
Create an atmosphere.
Yeah. So we've talked about lighting. What about interactive elements?
Interactive elements, yeah. We're moving beyond static displays.
We are. Gone are the days of just handing out brochures.
People want more.
Do they expect a more engaging experience?
Yeah, give us some examples.
Well, think about interactive screens, showcasing product demos or case studies, or even virtual reality or augmented reality.
I mean, that could be amazing for the wind energy sector.
Imagine a VR tour of a wind farm powered by your technology.
Oh, wow. That would be impressive.
Or even simple things like touch screens that allow visitors to explore information at their own pace.
At their own pace, yeah.
Or gamified elements.
Gamification.
Yeah, make learning about your products fun.
That's a great way to keep people on your stand.
And increase engagement.
And then there's the idea of storytelling.
Yeah, this is all about forging a real connection.
Emotional connection.
Yeah, with visitors. And instead of just listing product specifications.
Which can be pretty dry.
Use visuals. Use videos.
Tell a story?
Tell a story. Tell the story of your company, your mission, and the benefits you bring to the wind energy industry.
Because people remember stories.
They do.
Better than they remember a list of features.
Absolutely. And they want to understand the why behind what you do.
The why.
How can you help them achieve their goals?
Yeah. Okay, so then we've got something that might seem small.
Yeah.
But I think it's incredibly important. Seating and meeting spaces.
Comfort really matters.
Yeah, especially on a busy exhibition floor.
People are on their feet all day.
They are.
So having comfortable seating areas.
Signals that you value their time.
It does. It says you're open to conversation.
Yeah.
And it can be invaluable for those in-depth discussions.
And for qualifying leads.
Absolutely. Away from the hustle and bustle.
It turns your stand into a bit of a hub.
Yeah, a welcoming space where people want to spend time.
Not just grab a brochure and run.
Exactly. And then finally in this design section, a point of increasing importance, especially in renewable energy.
Sustainability.
If environmental responsibility is a core value for your brand.
Make it visible.
Make it visible in your stand design.
How?
Well, use eco-friendly materials.
Okay.
Incorporate recycled or upcycled elements.
Yeah.
And think about energy-efficient lighting solutions.
So it's not just about what you say, it's about what you do.
It is. Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah. And it shows that your commitment to these principles extends to every aspect of your business.
Including your exhibition.
Okay, so we've talked about pre-show planning.
We've designed an amazing stand.
And now
we need to choose the right builder.
The right builder.
And navigate the logistics of Madrid.
Of being in Madrid.
Exactly.
Okay.
So choosing the right builder is crucial.
Yeah. You're going to be spending a lot of time with these guys.
You are. It's a partnership.
It is.
And the first piece of advice here is to really do your research.
Yeah.
Don't just focus on the bottom line.
The cheapest quote.
Yeah, you want to go beyond that.
Okay.
Look at their portfolio of past work.
See what they've done before.
Read client testimonials.
Okay.
And look for experience with similar events.
Right.
And crucially, with IFEMA Madrid itself.
Yeah, have they worked in this space before?
Exactly. And don't hesitate to ask about their project management process.
Yeah.
How do they communicate? How responsive are they?
Yeah, because you need a partner who really understands your objectives.
You do.
Not just the cheapest contractor.
Exactly. And that leads us to the next step, asking the right questions.
Don't be afraid to go deep.
Yeah. Go beyond those standard inquiries.
What kind of questions should we be asking?
Well, ask about their experience handling logistics in Madrid.
Okay.
How familiar are they with IFEMA's regulations and procedures?
The specifics of the venue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What are their contingency plans if something goes wrong?
Yeah, what if there's a delay?
Yeah.
What if materials don't arrive on time?
Yeah, you need to know these things.
Okay.
Ask for a detailed breakdown of all potential costs.
So there are no surprises.
No nasty surprises.
Okay, and then a really interesting one, I thought.
Yeah, what about their own sustainability practices?
That's a good point.
Are they walking the walk?
Yeah, do they align with your values?
Exactly.
These are the questions that reveal their true capabilities.
And potential pitfalls.
Yeah, the things that could trip you up.
Exactly. And the final piece of advice in this section is all about local knowledge.
Oh.
Choose a builder with a history of working in Madrid.
And ideally at IFEMA.
That's it. Because they're going to understand the regulations, the logistics, the language even.
It just streamlines everything.
It does, or it reduces the risk of complications and delays.
Okay, so we've covered pre-show planning.
We've got a great design.
We've chosen the right builder.
Now we need to think about stand activation.
Okay.
And lead maximization.
Making the stand work for us.
This is where we turn all that preparation into results.
Okay, so first crucial step.
A pre-show marketing blitz.
We got to get people to the stand.
Yeah, you don't want to wait for attendees to just wander by.
No, you need to drive traffic.
Announce your presence at Wind Europe,
Loud and proud.
Tell everyone your stand number.
Yeah.
Highlight any special demonstrations or product launches you have planned.
Before the event even begins.
Get people excited.
Build that anticipation.
Use your email list, your social media.
Yeah.
Get the word out.
LinkedIn, all the channels.
Absolutely. And then once the exhibition opens, your stand staff or your front line.
They're the face of your company.
Absolutely. And their training is paramount.
They've got to be ready.
Make sure they understand your objectives.
Those specific measurable goals.
Those goals we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
They need comprehensive product knowledge.
Yeah.
Key talking points.
Yeah.
And effective techniques for capturing leads.
They're like salespeople.
They are in many ways.
They've got to know how to qualify those leads.
Exactly. And it's worth doing some role playing.
Practice those interactions.
Yeah. Common visitor questions.
So they feel prepared.
Absolutely. And you want them to be proactive.
Approachable, knowledgeable.
Welcoming.
And then capturing leads themselves.
Business cards just don't cut it anymore.
Too old school.
You need a streamlined system. Digital badge scanners.
Okay.
Lead capture apps or even simple digital forms.
Consistent and easy.
Yeah, make it quick and easy for your staff.
And make sure they capture that valuable information.
Beyond just basic contact detail, like
what?
What are their interests? What are their challenges?
Okay.
Kind of richer data.
So you can personalize the follow-up.
Which brings us to our final piece of advice, post-show follow-up.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
It is, because the real return on your investment often happens after the event.
So you've got to have a plan.
You need a strategy in place before you arrive in Madrid.
Okay.
Segment your leads. Personalize your communications and act quickly.
Well, it's all fresh in their minds.
Strike while the iron is hot.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
Exhibiting at Wind Europe is a huge opportunity.
It is. It's a chance to connect with the industry.
To showcase your innovations.
But as we've seen, it's not just about showing up.
No.
You need a strategy.
You need a plan.
And by implementing these insights from Atom Expo Stand Builder
and finding the right partners,
you can transform your booth
from just a static display
into a real engine for business development.
So as you're listening to this and you're thinking about your plans for Madrid, I want you to think about just one or two of these tips that really resonated with you.
What's going to move the needle for you?
What's going to make the biggest difference? And then think, what concrete, immediate changes can you make
to elevate your potential for success?
Make that presence count.
Absolutely.
At Wind Europe 2026.
Make it a success.
Make it a success. All right. That's it for the deep dive. Thanks for listening.
See you next time.